Egypt, land of the pharaohs, of mystery and ancient magic, a place Sarah and I had always dreamed of visiting. My name is Mark, a humble archaeologist from New York, obsessed with the chronicles of time and man's journey through it. Our plane landed in Cairo at twilight, the dying sun casting an ethereal glow over the sprawling city. As the plane's engines quieted down, a hushed silence fell over us, broken only by the occasional calls to prayer echoing through the cityscape. An unsettling chill ran down my spine, like the city was whispering ancient secrets, warning us of the unseen. But our excitement overshadowed any sense of unease. We settled in at our quaint hotel overlooking the Great Pyramids of Giza, a sight that would humble anyone. The following day, our adventure was to officially begin. But fate had a different plan. It was at a bustling market we stumbled upon him. A gnarled old merchant, nestled away in an unassuming corner. Amid a labyrinth of stalls brimming with colorful trinkets, his place was an island of monochrome, filled with antiquities that hinted at a past too ancient to comprehend. "There is an aura about you," he said, his eyes shrouded under a heavy brow, a smile revealing teeth stained by time. "A destiny unfulfilled." His words, although cryptic, pulled me in, like a moth drawn to a flame. Sarah held my hand a little tighter as we stepped closer. "May we look around?" I asked. "Of course," he responded, his voice a rasp, "but I have something special for you." He disappeared into the back of the stall and returned, holding a small artifact. It was a beautifully crafted golden ankh, the Egyptian symbol of life. "Ankh amulet, powerful charm, believed to grant eternal life," he said, placing it in my hand. It felt unusually cold, its weight significant for its size. As I held it, a wave of dizziness washed over me, followed by a vision of colossal stone structures and a sun-drenched landscape. I blinked, and it was gone. Sarah, noticing my pallor, asked, "Mark, are you okay?" I nodded, although I wasn't sure. There was something about the amulet, something that unsettled me, yet called out to me. It felt as if I held not just an artifact, but a piece of history that had its own heartbeat. I decided to buy it, as much out of curiosity as to assuage the strange look the merchant gave us. That night, sleep eluded me. The vision at the market had triggered a sense of dread I couldn't shake off. The room felt colder. The shadows cast by the moonlight through the window seemed to twist and shift. The ankh lay on the table near our bed, seemingly innocuous, yet exuding an unseen energy. The city of Cairo slept around us, oblivious to our story that was just beginning to unfold. But as I lay there in the quiet, listening to Sarah's soft breaths, I realized that the whispering city wasn't just sharing ancient secrets, it was pulling us into them. We were not mere visitors anymore. We had become a part of its tale, one that promised an adventure beyond our wildest dreams, or perhaps beyond our darkest nightmares. And so, our journey began. Not with the grandeur of the pyramids or the elegance of the Sphinx, but with an old merchant, a mysterious artifact, and the creeping feeling that our lives were about to be irrevocably changed. Little did we know, the sands of time were shifting under our feet, preparing to swallow us whole into the depths of history. The first rays of the Egyptian sun crept into our room, spilling golden warmth across the cold stone floor. My eyes flickered open. I noticed the ankh glinting ominously from the side table. It had started to feel less like an artifact, and more like a precursor to an uncanny voyage. Shaking off a sense of growing unease, I woke Sarah. It was time for our visit to the pyramids. The majesty of the pyramids was awe-inspiring. Standing at their base, I could almost hear the echoes of the thousands of men who had toiled under the unforgiving sun to create these monuments to immortality. But as I traced my fingers over the time-worn stones, the vision I had at the market returned with a dizzying intensity. Before I knew it, I was standing within the heart of the Great Pyramid, separated from the throng of tourists, guided by an unknown force. Sarah, ever the adventurer, didn't question it. She merely held my hand, her presence reassuring, her eyes reflecting an insatiable curiosity. We journeyed deeper, down narrow passageways and through forgotten chambers, a labyrinth within the bowels of the great stone beast. I felt the weight of time heavy in the air. Each inhale tasted of dust and history. Every echoing footstep was a beat in the symphony of an ancient, eternal dance. Then, we stumbled upon it. Hidden behind an obscure, loose stone panel was a cavernous room, untouched by time. The air was thick with an age-old mustiness, disturbed after centuries of solitude. The chamber walls were adorned with beautifully preserved hieroglyphs that narrated tales of gods, pharaohs, and of time. The most captivating sight, however, was a colossal machine standing in the center of the chamber. Unlike anything we'd seen in any archaeological literature or history books, the structure was a perplexing amalgam of ancient craftsmanship and an eerily advanced design. Constructed of gold and an unknown mineral that shimmered under the dim light, it was adorned with elaborate carvings, the centerpiece being a giant ankh identical to the one the merchant had sold us. The ankh on the machine pulsed with a soft light, matching the rhythm of my own heartbeat. Driven by an impulse I couldn't resist, I retrieved the ankh from my bag and approached the machine. With each step, the atmosphere in the chamber changed. It was as if the very walls held their breath in anticipation. I placed the ankh into a slot that seemed made for it, and the room burst into life. Hieroglyphs on the walls glowed with an unearthly light. The machine hummed with a power that vibrated the ancient floor beneath us. The ankh in the machine began to rotate, faster and faster, blurring into a disk of brilliant gold. Then, the world around us started warping, like a mirage in the desert heat. Sarah clung to me, her fingers digging into my arm. "Mark, what's happening?" she screamed over the deafening hum of the machine. Fear was etched across her face, mirroring my own. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was going to be okay. But the truth was, I had no idea what was happening. Suddenly, a blinding light engulfed us. I felt a force pulling at us, yanking us away from everything we knew. A whirlwind of images flashed before my eyes, towering deities, armies of the desert, the Nile's flooding, and the construction of the monumental pyramids. We were not just witnessing history. We were being dragged into it. As abruptly as it started, everything stopped. We were no longer in the chamber. Instead, we stood in an open, sunlit space, surrounded by the bustling life of an ancient city. People dressed in traditional Egyptian clothes hurried about. Children ran underfoot, playing with simple toys. The most shocking sight was the pyramids, in the distance, looking newly built, their limestone casing gleaming under the sun. An ominous feeling of dread filled my heart. The machine, the ankh, and our reckless curiosity had transported us into the past, thousands of years into the very heart of ancient Egypt. We had awoken the sands of time, and now, we were lost within them. Sarah and I stood frozen, our eyes wide as we took in the sights around us. We had traveled back in time, our once-dream vacation becoming a reality more terrifying than anything we could have anticipated. Our modern clothes and confused demeanors caught the attention of the locals. Their wary eyes scrutinized us, and murmurs spread through the crowd like ripples in a pond. We were strangers in this ancient world, conspicuous and vulnerable. "Mark, what are we gonna do?" Sarah whispered, her eyes filled with fear. I squeezed her hand reassuringly, though I was trembling inside. I didn't have an answer, but we had to keep going, to blend in until we could find our way back. As we stumbled our way through the city, trying to mimic the locals' manners, we caught snippets of conversations. Their language was an ancient dialect of Egyptian, but as an archaeologist, I could comprehend enough. Word of our sudden appearance had spread fast. Some thought we were deities. Others suspected we were sorcerers or omens of some impending disaster. With every passing moment, our situation grew increasingly dire. The feeling of being cornered prey, with hundreds of eyes watching our every move, was terrifying. The familiar thrill of exploring a new place had been replaced with a cold sense of dread. Just when I thought we were about to be overwhelmed by the crowd, a commanding voice echoed through the air, dispersing the gathering. A figure emerged, flanked by guards, a high priest, as suggested by his ornate attire and staff adorned with the symbol of Anubis, the god of the afterlife. He scrutinized us with piercing eyes before gesturing to his guards. Rough hands grabbed us, pulling us away from the bustling city square. We were brought before a grand temple, its towering columns stretching towards the sky, covered in intricate hieroglyphs. We were in the presence of the powerful, and it made our predicament all the more terrifying. Inside the temple, under the watchful eyes of the priests and painted gods on the wall, we were questioned. Each word I spoke was measured, each movement calculated. A single misstep, and we could end up angering these men of religion and power. Eventually, the high priest, intrigued by our strange dialect and advanced knowledge of hieroglyphics, decided we were scholars from a distant land. We were allowed to live among them, but under watchful eyes. It was a small relief, yet the weight of our predicament remained. Days turned into weeks. We adopted their customs, wore their clothes, and learned their ways. The looming pyramids, a beacon of mystery and grandeur, were a constant reminder of the unknown machine hidden beneath, our only hope of returning home. Our nights were consumed by hushed conversations and plans. We needed to get back to the machine, but it was nearly impossible. The pyramids were a sacred ground, heavily guarded, and only accessible to the pharaoh and high priests. As the reality of our situation set in, the initial terror gave way to a different kind of fear. We were trapped in a time that was not ours, surrounded by people who saw us as oddities. The threat of what would happen if our true origin was discovered hung over us like a sword of Damocles. Despite our fear, we were living history. We bore witness to an era that modern humans could only dream of seeing. Yet each day, as the Egyptian sun set, painting the sky with hues of crimson and gold, a bitter truth lingered. Our extraordinary circumstance was not an adventure, but a chilling dance with time itself. A dance we had unwillingly joined. And as we laid on the straw mattress in our modest dwelling, staring at the thatched roof, the dark silence of the night was broken only by our whispered promises. Promises to find a way back home, to escape the shadows of the past that threatened to become our future. In the heart of ancient Egypt, as pharaohs ruled and gods were appeased, two modern souls were embarking on a chilling journey. A journey through time, fear, and uncertainty. And as the pale moonlight illuminated the sand-covered landscape, our nightmare in paradise had only just begun. Life in ancient Egypt was far removed from the comfort and predictability of our modern lives. We adapted, adopting their customs and clothes, learning their language, but beneath it all, a sense of foreboding persisted. We were imposters, two actors playing a part in a play that spanned millennia. As time went by, we became proficient in their language and customs. I found employment in a scribe's office, and Sarah, with her natural flair for storytelling, became a favored entertainer at the court. However, our predicament remained unchanged. Every day was a reminder that we were prisoners of time, stuck in an era that was not our own. The mystery of the machine and the Ankh haunted us. Our every waking moment was spent looking for a way to get back to that hidden chamber, back to our own time. Then, late one night, an opportunity arose. The pharaoh announced a grand celebration for the completion of a new pyramid. It was to be a night of revelry, with the whole city participating in the festivities, including the royal guards. We saw our chance. With the guards preoccupied, we could sneak into the pyramid. As the night of the festival approached, I felt a knot in my stomach. Our plan was risky, the possibility of failure high. Yet the thought of remaining trapped in this time was even more terrifying. The night of the festival arrived, and the city was alive with excitement. Musicians played, dancers spun, and firelight danced on the faces of the celebrants. It was a beautiful spectacle, but beneath the joy, I could only feel a chilling fear. We waited for the right moment, and then, under the cover of darkness, we slipped away from the crowd. As we approached the Great Pyramid, it stood ominous and imposing against the night sky, bathed in the silver light of the moon. Its entrance was shrouded in darkness, a gaping mouth ready to swallow us. With bated breath, we made our way through the passageways, the echoes of our footsteps a chilling reminder of our audacity. I felt an unseen presence, an unease in the air that seemed to grow with every step we took. But we pressed on, the thought of home propelling us forward. We reached the hidden chamber, and the sight of the machine filled us with a mixture of dread and hope. It was our gateway, our curse, and our potential savior. I rushed to the machine and placed the Ankh in its slot. It began to hum, its vibrations shaking the chamber. The air grew thick, heavy with anticipation. Sarah held my hand, her grip tight with fear and anticipation. Our hearts pounded in unison as we waited for the familiar pull of time travel. Suddenly, the chamber was filled with an ear-splitting roar. A rush of wind swept through the room, whipping up sand and dust. I shielded my eyes, struggling to see through the chaos. As my eyes adjusted, a horrifying sight greeted me. Out of the shadowy corners of the room, spectral figures emerged. They were massive, dark, and bore an oppressive aura. Their eyes, glowing with a menacing red light, were locked onto us. They were the guardians of the machine, the unseen threat we hadn't accounted for. The spectral figures advanced, their forms shifting, mirroring the warriors and beasts of ancient lore. A chilling fear seized me as I realized our desperate bid for freedom had awakened a deadly force. We were in their realm, at the mercy of these ancient guardians. As they closed in, the fear in Sarah's eyes mirrored my own. We were trapped, caught between an angry past and an inaccessible future. The shadows of the past had risen, turning our horrifying predicament into a living nightmare. The spectral guardians towered over us, their forms shifting between human and beast, their crimson eyes glowing with an ancient rage. Their very presence filled the chamber with a bone-chilling cold, a tangible dread that seemed to seep into our souls. My heart pounded in my chest as one of the guardians advanced, its form solidifying into a muscular warrior. It raised a colossal ghostly blade, the edge gleaming ominously in the machine's dim glow. Its eyes were locked onto us, its intentions clear. I pulled Sarah behind me, shielding her with my body. The guardian swung its blade, and we dodged just in time, the powerful gust from its swing almost knocking us off our feet. "Sarah, we have to get out of here!" I shouted over the deafening howl of the wind that swirled within the chamber. She nodded, her eyes wide with terror. Using the machine as cover, we tried to inch our way towards the exit. But the guardians seemed to anticipate our movements, their ghostly forms eerily agile. Each step towards escape was met with a terrifying show of force, blocking our way and pushing us back. The guardians didn't seem to want to kill us outright, but were hell-bent on stopping us from leaving the chamber. They were protectors, but not of us. They were guardians of the past, defending against intruders who dared to meddle with the flow of time. With the exit blocked, I scanned the chamber desperately for an escape route, my mind racing. The walls were inscribed with hieroglyphs that danced under the machine's glow, their ancient secrets a mystery. The weight of thousands of years echoed around us, taunting us with a history we were not part of. As another ghostly blade sliced through the air, a crazy idea flashed through my mind. The machine. If I could just manage to activate it, perhaps we could escape. But the Ankh, our key to activating the machine, was still inside it. I needed a distraction. I needed Sarah. I turned to her, my eyes pleading. "Sarah, I need you to distract them." Her eyes widened in fear. "How?" "Do what you do best," I said, a desperate plan forming in my mind. "Tell them a story." Sarah was a natural storyteller, a skill that had made her popular in the royal court. Her stories had the power to captivate, to enchant. Could they distract these spectral guardians? She hesitated, her gaze shifting between me and the terrifying specters. Then she nodded, stepping forward with a courage that left me in awe. Sarah took a deep breath, her voice rising above the eerie silence of the chamber. She began to weave a tale, her words flowing with the grace of the Nile. It was a story of gods and heroes, of betrayal and redemption, a tale steeped in ancient lore. Her voice echoed in the chamber, a beacon of humanity in a place of haunting darkness. To my amazement, the guardians paused, their crimson eyes flickering with what seemed like curiosity. Their attention was on Sarah, their threatening stance lessening. Seizing the opportunity, I rushed to the machine, carefully pulling out the Ankh. The machine began to whir and hum, and the spectral guardians turned their gaze towards me. But it was too late. I pressed the Ankh against the machine's panel, and a blinding light enveloped us. In a moment of disorientation, time lost its meaning. My stomach churned as the familiar pull of time travel gripped us. The chamber and its spectral guardians dissolved around us, their angered roars fading into a terrifying echo in the darkness. Our desperate bid for escape had worked. But as the blinding light dimmed and the chilling echo of the past faded, we found ourselves not in our own time, but deeper in the sands of deception. In the heart of an even more ancient Egypt, a time of gods and the dawn of the pharaohs, the machine had not brought us home, but further into the shadowy depths of the past. And as we faced this terrifying reality, the whispers of the past echoed around us, a grim reminder of our dance with time. We were not spectators, but unwilling participants in a play that spanned millennia. A play of horrors, mysteries, and a relentless pursuit of survival. Our surroundings blurred back into focus, and my breath hitched at the sight. We were in a grand palace, opulent in ways the court of the pharaoh we had left behind could never imagine. Statues of gods loomed over us, their gold and lapis lazuli reflecting the light from the countless braziers. The air smelled of frankincense and myrrh, and in the distance, the rhythmic sound of drums reverberated. We were in a different time, an even more ancient Egypt, a time where gods walked among men. Sarah clung to my arm, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. I could feel her trembling, her grip tightening as we took in the alien surroundings. We were strangers in a strange land, prisoners of an era we couldn't comprehend. Suddenly the drumming ceased and a hush fell over the palace. The grand doors at the end of the hall creaked open, and in walked a figure that left us in awe. He was tall and imposing, clad in a golden robe that shimmered with precious stones. The double crown of Egypt sat upon his head, and his eyes were as dark and deep as the Nile. This was a pharaoh of the old world, a god king. As his gaze landed on us, my heart pounded in my chest. We were trespassers, intruders in a time not our own. But before fear could completely take hold, the pharaoh's stern face broke into a smile, his voice filling the room. "Welcome, wanderers of time." The words struck me like a lightning bolt. He knew what we were, where we came from, but how? Before I could voice my questions, he gestured for us to follow him. With no other choice, we did, walking through a labyrinth of corridors, each more opulent than the last. We entered a chamber, its walls adorned with hieroglyphs that seemed to tell stories of battles and triumphs, gods and demons, love and betrayal. The pharaoh turned to us, his eyes gleaming with an ancient wisdom. He spoke of the machine, the spectral guardians, and the Ankh. He knew of our desperate attempts to return to our time and our harrowing journey through the annals of history. His words painted a terrifying picture of a past that had become our prison and a future that was fading away. The guardians you encountered were not meant to harm you, but to prevent the violation of time, he said, his voice echoing in the chamber. The machine was built by the gods to observe the flow of time, not alter it. You have awakened forces you cannot comprehend. His words were a chilling reminder of our audacity, our desperation. We had meddled with time, played with forces we didn't understand, and we were paying the price. But there is a way, he continued, his gaze piercing. A sacrifice to the god of time, Thoth. A life for a life. One of you must remain, and the other may return. A life for a life. The words resonated in my mind, a haunting echo that filled me with dread. I looked at Sarah, her face pale as she comprehended the pharaoh's words. A sacrifice. It was her or me. I could see the fear in her eyes, but also a determination, a fierce resolve. She was ready to make the ultimate sacrifice, for me, for us, but I couldn't let her. The thought of leaving her behind, of returning to our time without her, was a fate worse than being trapped in the past. As we stared at each other, an unspoken promise passed between us. We would find a way together. We were trapped in a time not our own, facing ancient forces beyond our understanding. But as long as we were together, we had a fighting chance. With the pharaoh's words echoing in our minds and the daunting task ahead, we stepped back into the palace. The grandeur of the ancient world was a stark contrast to the horror of our situation. The shadowy depths of the past had trapped us, our future hanging by a thread. As we moved towards an uncertain tomorrow, the whispers of ancient times echoed around us, a terrifying lullaby in a world of shadows. In the heart of an ancient world, beneath the shadow of gods and god-kings, Sarah and I found ourselves entangled in a terrifying game of time. The pharaoh's proclamation still echoed in my ears, a life for a life, an unbearable sacrifice, one that neither of us could make. But time was running out. The more we meddled with the past, the stronger the forces against us seemed to grow. Each passing day was a cruel reminder of the life we had left behind, the life that seemed more like a dream now. The pharaoh had tasked us with a mission, a riddle wrapped in the cryptic tales of the ancient gods. Find the Eye of Ra, he had said, the key to the heart of time. Only then the sacrifice can be made. Neither of us knew what the Eye of Ra was or where we could find it. But this was our only hope, our only path back home. The Pharaoh's enigmatic clues led us to the Grand Library of Alexandria, a trove of ancient knowledge and wisdom. The library was a labyrinth of scrolls and papyrus, tales of gods and kings, stories of wars and peace, an archive of time itself. The whispers of time echoed through the vast halls of the library, thousands of voices from an era long forgotten. There was a certain fear, a reverence that made my heart pound as we searched through the ancient texts. The hieroglyphs danced before my eyes, each symbol a mystery, each sentence a riddle. Hours turned into days, and days into weeks, and yet the Eye of Ra remained elusive. One night, as the moon bathed the library in its silver glow, I found myself drawn to a neglected corner of the library. A dusty ancient scroll sat alone, its edges frayed with time. I unrolled it with trembling hands, the papyrus crumbling under the slightest pressure. And there, in the faded ink and ancient hieroglyphs, I found what we had been looking for. The scroll spoke of the Eye of Ra, not as an object, but a place. A sacred place hidden deep in the heart of the desert, a place where the sun met the earth. A place of untold power and unspeakable horrors. The Eye of Ra was a gateway, a bridge between the mortal world and the realm of the gods. As I relayed the findings to Sarah, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. But alongside it, I saw fear. The path ahead was fraught with unknown perils, a journey through the unforgiving desert and into the heart of an ancient mystery. But this was a path we had to tread, our only chance to return to our own time. Armed with the knowledge from the ancient scroll, we bid farewell to the Grand Library of Alexandria. Ahead of us lay the unforgiving desert, a sea of golden sand that held the key to our fate. As we ventured deeper into the heart of ancient Egypt, the whispers of time grew louder. An unspeakable horror lay ahead of us, a test of our courage and our resolve. But in this terrifying game of time, it was a horror we had to face. Each step we took was a step into the unknown, a dance with the forces of time. The desert sun was relentless, its searing heat a constant torment. But beneath the torment and the fear, a flicker of hope survived. A hope that the Eye of Ra would hold the key to our escape, the solution to the God King's riddle. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the desert came alive with the sounds of the night. The silhouettes of ancient structures loomed in the distance, a silent testament to an era long forgotten. The whispers of time seemed to grow louder, echoing through the vast expanse of the desert. But amongst the echoes, another sound rang clear, the slow, eerie melody of a flute. And in the moonlight we saw them, ghostly figures emerging from the shadows, their faces obscured under the hooded cloaks. They moved towards us, their bodies swaying to the haunting melody of the flute. We had found the guardians of the Eye of Ra, the spectral sentinels of time. The first test of our terrifying journey had begun. As the spectral figures emerged from the shadows, I could feel Sarah's hand tighten around mine. The flute's melancholic melody filled the desert night, resonating with the haunting rhythm of our pounding hearts. They were 7, each cloaked in garments of ethereal white, shimmering under the moonlight. As they encircled us, the desert's hush seemed to amplify, quivering in anticipation. Then, one of them, taller and seemingly older, moved forward. A wizened face peered out from the hood, the eyes glowing with an otherworldly luminescence. "I am Ankh-Neteru, the Keeper of Time," he said, his voice echoing through the vast desert like a whisper in the wind. "You seek the Eye of Ra. Why?" Sarah squeezed my hand, her eyes mirroring the fear and determination I felt. We want to return home, our own time." A silence fell over us. Ankh-Neteru's gaze was unreadable, his silence more intimidating than any words. Then he nodded. "A noble pursuit. However, the path to the Eye is laden with trials. Time guards its secrets fiercely. Are you prepared?" "We are," I responded, swallowing the lump in my throat. It was a bold declaration, laced with a hope that fought the engulfing fear. Ankh-Neteru's gaze lingered on us for a moment before he stepped back, joining the circle. "Then let the trials begin." The desert around us shifted. The sand spiraled upwards, forming massive walls on either side. In front of us, the once flat terrain morphed into a series of platforms, each ascending and leading towards a colossal pyramid bathed in moonlight. The final destination. the Eye of Ra. The first trial was the trial of shadows. As we climbed the platforms, our shadows, distorted and elongated, sprang to life, mirroring our actions but with a sinister intent. They were embodiments of our darkest fears, physical manifestations of every horror we had encountered and every horror that awaited us. It was a struggle against ourselves, a battle of will and courage. The second trial was the trial of echoes. Each platform became a stage of our past, reflecting our memories, our joys, and our regrets. The desert echoed with the laughter and cries of our past selves, a jarring symphony of nostalgia and sorrow. It was a disconcerting journey through time, a stark reminder of what we had lost and what we stood to lose. The final trial was the trial of sacrifice. Ankh-Neteru stood at the platform, his ancient eyes reflecting the solemnity of the moment. To reach the Eye of Ra, one must understand the nature of sacrifice, he intoned. You must leave behind what you hold dearest. I looked at Sarah, her eyes welling up with a horrifying understanding. This was what the Pharaoh meant. A life for a life. One of us had to stay behind. No, I protested. There has to be another way. Ankh-Neteru's gaze softened, but his words remained resolute. This is the way of time, young ones. The balance must be maintained. I felt Sarah's hand slipping away from mine, her resolve reflecting in her tear-filled eyes. But I couldn't let her. Not now, not ever. No, I said, louder this time, staring back at the Keeper of Time. We will find another way. As we stood, defying the insurmountable odds and the formidable guardians of time, the desert night seemed to hold its breath. Would our defiance bear fruit, or had we journeyed to the heart of time only to lose each other? Would the Eye of Ra lead us home, or deeper into the shadowy abyss of the ancient past? The whispers of time grew louder, echoing our fears and hopes as we faced the final trial, a testament to our courage, our love, and our desperate fight against time itself. Defiance hung in the air, our refusal a tangible force against the solemn finality of Ankh-Neteru's pronouncement. Sarah's hand in mine felt warmer, her fingers clenching tighter, as if making a silent pledge to face whatever would come, together. Ankh-Neteru looked on, his ancient face unreadable under the moonlight. Then find another way, you must. His voice was not admonishing, but melancholic, perhaps reminiscing countless others who had stood where we did, defying the inevitable. Suddenly, the desert landscape altered again. The moonlight grew harsher, casting an eerie pallor over the shifting sands. The walls of sand towered higher, creating an arena where only the three of us existed. A sudden cold wind whipped up, its mournful howl seeming to carry the despairing whispers of 1,000 lost souls. And in the center, atop a raised platform of gleaming sand, appeared a grand golden hourglass, its sands trickling down relentlessly. The sands of eternity, Ankh-Neteru intoned, his voice echoing ominously. If you believe there is another way, then seek your answers here. I glanced at Sarah and saw in her eyes the same determination that fueled my heart. Together, we stepped onto the platform. The hourglass towered above us, its falling sands a constant reminder of our dwindling time. Reaching out, I placed my hand on the cool surface of the hourglass. Instantly, a rush of images flooded my mind. Events, moments, choices, all the possibilities of our lives back home, all the divergent paths we could have taken, the past, present, and future entwined in a dance of time. But among those myriad threads, one echoed stronger than others. The moment we activated the ancient machine, the moment we stepped into the past. I looked at Sarah, her face pale under the onslaught of shared visions. Her eyes met mine, reflecting the same realization. The machine. It was the anomaly, the ripple in the fabric of time that had led us here. If we could correct that. But how? Sarah's voice was but a whisper, her thoughts mirroring mine. We could use the machine to stop us from ever using it, I answered, the idea taking shape in my mind. A ghost of a smile tugged at Ankh-Neteru's lips. A loop to undo the loop. A clever solution. But will time permit such an intervention? There's only one way to find out, I said, turning back to the hourglass. I focused on that moment in our timeline, reaching out through the dizzying maelstrom of time, praying, hoping. Then there was a shift, a tiny ripple that echoed through our timeline, altering the course of events. In our shared vision, we saw ourselves back in the pyramid, staring at the mysterious machine. But this time, there was a difference. A note left by us, for us, warning about the time loop, the dangers, the trials, the sacrifice. Our past selves looked at each other, the note falling from their hands, fear and relief evident on their faces. They stepped back from the machine, leaving it untouched, its purpose remaining a mystery. The vision faded and we were back in the desert, the sands of eternity still trickling down, but somehow the air felt different, lighter. We looked at Ankh-Neteru, our silent question hanging in the air. His glowing eyes held a soft glimmer as he nodded. You have altered your past, and thus, your present. The Eye of Ra accepts your sacrifice. The desert around us started fading, the colossal sand walls lowering, revealing once again the endless stretch of moonlit sand. But this time, there was no impending trial, no spectral guardians, only the gentle desert wind carrying the faint melodies of ancient songs. As we stood there, hand in hand, our hearts echoed with a quiet joy, a sense of victory over the terrifying trials, over time itself. We had found a way, together, but our journey was far from over. The shadows of the ancient past still loomed, the echoes of time still whispered tales of unspeakable horrors, and our path back home was still shrouded in mystery. But now, we had hope, a beacon that would guide us through the darkness, through the echoes of time, back to where we belonged. The whispers of time had become our song of defiance, our anthem of hope, our lullaby of courage. And as we looked into the moonlit desert, our path illuminated by the triumph of our resolution, we knew we would face whatever awaited us, together, until we found our way back home. As we stepped away from the fading grandeur of the sands of eternity, the silence of the desert felt eerily profound. The whispers of time had faded into a distant murmur, and the spectral guardians had vanished. All that remained was us, the moonlit expanse of sand, and the path leading to the formidable pyramid under the shimmering stars, the dwelling place of the Eye of Ra. The sands beneath our feet shifted with every step, whispering tales of ancient heroes and forgotten gods, tales that were as old as time itself. The pyramids stood as an enduring testament to the unyielding passage of time, their imposing silhouettes etched sharply against the starry canvas of the night sky. We approached the pyramid slowly, the weight of our journey bearing down upon us. A strange chill swept across the desert, wrapping around us like an ominous cloak. It was a chilling prelude to the trials that awaited us. The entrance to the pyramid was an inky void, a doorway to the past, brimming with unknown horrors and mysteries. As we stood before the entrance, I could feel Sarah's grip on my hand tightening. I turned to look at her, her face partially illuminated by the moonlight. I could see the uncertainty flickering in her eyes, shadowed by the horrors of what might lie within. "We can do this, Sarah," I whispered, squeezing her hand in assurance. Her eyes met mine, the glimmer of determination resurfacing. She nodded, her grip on my hand reassuring. Stepping into the pyramid was like stepping into another world. The desert's chilly wind was replaced by an unnatural stillness, a chilling hush that seemed to stretch into infinity. Our footsteps echoed ominously through the endless stone corridors, the oppressive darkness barely kept at bay by our dimly lit torches. Every inch of the pyramid was inscribed with hieroglyphics, the etchings appearing alive in the flickering torchlight. They told a terrifying tale of a time when the gods walked among men, of unspeakable rituals performed to appease them, and of sacrifices made in their names. My heart pounded in my chest as I wondered what role we would play in this ancient narrative. As we delved deeper into the heart of the pyramid, the air grew colder, the darkness more profound. The silence was occasionally broken by a distant echo, a chilling reminder of the labyrinthine nightmare we were navigating. We reached a chamber adorned with colossal statues of jackal-headed Anubis, the god of the afterlife. They stood as silent sentinels, their obsidian eyes gleaming with an eerie luminescence in the torchlight. It was as if they were assessing our worthiness, deciding our fate in this ancient world. A colossal door stood before us, decorated with intricate symbols and guarded by the Anubis statues. As I approached, I could feel a strange hum resonating from the door, an ancient energy pulsating in sync with the beating of my heart. I reached out and pushed the door. It moved with surprising ease, revealing another room bathed in an otherworldly blue light. This was the Chamber of the Eye, the heart of the pyramid. In the center was a circular pedestal, atop which sat a magnificent golden artifact studded with azure gems, the Eye of Ra. It pulsed with a power that seemed to defy the sands of time, its blue light casting dancing shadows on the chamber walls. But what stole my breath away was the shadow that stood beside the pedestal. It was tall and imposing, draped in royal attire. A golden mask adorned its face, a visage of the ancient pharaohs. As it turned to face us, I could see the unmistakable glow of blue from within the eye holes of the mask, the same blue as the Eye of Ra. Before us stood the last pharaoh, the immortal guardian of the Eye of Ra. As the chilling reality sank in, I could feel the blood draining from my face. We were standing in the presence of a god king, in the heart of an ancient world, our fate hanging by a thread in this chilling confrontation. The figure of the pharaoh was bathed in the azure light of the Eye of Ra, his golden mask gleaming with an eerie luminescence. Time seemed to stand still as we found ourselves locked in a chilling standoff with this figure from the past. "I am Akhenaten, the last of the god kings," he intoned. His voice was a low rumble, echoing through the ancient chamber. "Why do you seek the Eye of Ra?" I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. "We seek a way to return to our time, Akhenaten. We meant no harm when we activated the machine. We did not realize it would lead us here." The God King seemed to ponder my words, his golden mask reflecting our anxious faces. "The path through time is treacherous. Many have lost themselves in its labyrinth, never to return. Yet you claim you seek to undo your actions. You wish to reset the sands of time?" His words carried a weight that sunk into my heart, but I stood tall. "Yes, we seek to correct our actions, to ensure that we never meddled with time." "Very well," he said after a prolonged silence. "Then you shall face the trial of the pharaohs. If you succeed, you may use the Eye of Ra to return to your time. If you fail, you will join the many souls lost in the desert of time." The air in the chamber shifted as Akhenaten lifted his hand, gesturing toward the wall behind him. As if responding to his command, the stone wall trembled before parting down the middle. The new passage was dark. The air wafting out of it felt old, ancient. The trial of the pharaohs awaited us. Steeling ourselves, we stepped into the passage. As soon as we crossed the threshold, the wall closed behind us with a resounding thud. There was no going back now. Our torches flickered as we moved deeper into the passage, the light struggling against the oppressive darkness. The passage twisted and turned, leading us deeper into the pyramid's belly. The air grew colder, carrying a musty smell of age and dust. Our footsteps echoed through the narrow passage, a rhythmic soundtrack to our eerie descent. We came upon a room shrouded in darkness, the meager light from our torches barely touching its boundaries. From the shadows there emerged a low hum, growing in intensity with each passing moment. As our eyes adjusted to the dark, we saw them. Sarcophagi, dozens of them, arranged in a circle around the room. Each sarcophagus bore the likeness of a pharaoh, their faces forever captured in an expression of serene authority. But the hum was emanating from the center of the circle, from a stone pedestal that bore an ancient scroll. As I reached for the scroll, a sudden gust of wind blew out our torches. Panic gripped me as darkness closed in. But then, in the absolute blackness, the scroll began to glow, casting an ethereal light around the room. The humming grew louder as I unrolled the scroll. It was a map of the stars as they were in the times of the pharaohs. Drawn on it were paths connecting different stars, forming the constellations familiar and alien at once. At the center of the map was a symbol, the Eye of Ra, but its location corresponded to no star I recognized. "Align the heavens with the eye," a voice echoed through the room. I looked up to find the stone ceiling parting, revealing the star-studded sky above. The stars twinkled ominously as we stood in the ancient burial chamber, surrounded by pharaohs of old and the chilling voice of the God King guiding us from afar. The starry map, the opening to the heavens, the trial of the pharaohs. It was clear what we had to do. We had to align the ancient sky with the Eye of Ra's symbol. Only then could we prove ourselves worthy of the eye and the path back home. Fear tightened its grip around my heart as we gazed upon the cosmic puzzle. Our fate was written in the stars, hidden within the whispers of the past and the echoes of ancient wisdom. The weight of the trial lay heavy on our shoulders, but we were not about to give up. Not when the way home was within our reach. Not when failure meant being forever lost in time. With newfound resolve, we prepared to face the celestial trial, ready to unlock the ancient secrets whispered by the echoes of the past. Surrounded by the eerie gloom of the sarcophagus-filled room, with the stars in sight, we began the trial of the Pharaohs. Our hearts pounded with anticipation, each beat a stark reminder of the ticking clock we were racing against. We had one chance to solve the cosmic puzzle and make our way back home. Sarah was the first to move, her hand delicately tracing the lines of constellations on the glowing map. Her fingers danced between stars, aligning constellations in her mind, trying to decipher the ancient celestial code. The dim glow of the scroll bathed her face in a ghostly light, her eyes filled with determination and fear. I turned my attention to the open ceiling, the same constellations that dotted the scroll mirrored in the night sky, the stars twinkling in the depths of the dark abyss, but they were just out of place, just enough to make the task daunting. With every moment spent in the tomb, the stars shifted, and so did our chances of returning home. Then it hit me. The Eye of Ra on the map wasn't a star. It was a symbol for a celestial event, a convergence of heavenly bodies. I remembered my fascination with astronomy, the nights I spent stargazing, and the ancient Egyptian belief in celestial alignment as a portal to the divine. "The Eye of Ra isn't a star, Sarah," I exclaimed. "It's an eclipse. We need to align the constellations to predict an eclipse." A flicker of understanding lit up her face, and together, we began to manipulate the celestial map. We moved the stars, aligning constellations, and calculated the cycles of the moon. Minutes turned into hours, and with every passing moment, the air in the room grew colder, the humming louder. Finally, the constellations aligned in a configuration that pointed to an eclipse. The celestial bodies lined up, the moon covering the sun, casting the Eye of Ra's shadow onto Earth. The hum from the scroll grew louder, resonating with an unseen energy. As the last star clicked into place, a powerful beam of light shot out from the scroll, illuminating the room in a brilliant azure glow. The ground beneath us shuddered, and the sarcophagi around us trembled. Then, one by one, the lids of the sarcophagi began to slide open. A gust of ancient air hit us, carrying with it the musty scent of old linen and embalming spices. From each sarcophagus, a figure rose, clad in regal attire, with death masks adorned with precious stones. The mummified pharaohs towered above us. Their hollow eye sockets burned with the same azure glow as the Eye of Ra. "We have been awakened!" one of them echoed, his voice a bone-chilling rasp. "Have you aligned the heavens?" With a trembling hand, I held up the glowing scroll, the map showing the alignment of the stars and the predicted eclipse. The pharaohs surveyed it, their silence more terrifying than any words they could speak. "Then you have passed the trial of the pharaohs," the lead pharaoh finally announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You are worthy of the Eye of Ra." With those words, a portal shimmered into existence before us, the edges wavering like a mirage. Inside, I could see a scene from our time, our world. My heart pounded in my chest as I took a step towards it. But the pharaoh's hollow eyes burned into us, their words a chilling reminder. "Wield the Eye of Ra with respect, mortal, for it sees all that was, is, and can be. Do not let history repeat itself." With a final look at the ancient god-kings, Sarah and I stepped into the portal. As we moved forward, I could feel the fabric of time wrapping around us. We were leaving the past behind, but the echoes of our journey would haunt us forever. I clung to the hope that we would return home, that we would correct our actions, but the chilling prospect of the unknown kept gnawing at the edge of my consciousness. We stepped out of the portal, the ancient sands of Egypt replaced by a modern city's bustling energy. The sounds of car horns, people talking, and city life felt strangely alien after the silence of the pyramids. But as I took in our surroundings, a feeling of dread washed over me. Something was different. Something was wrong. Buildings that were once familiar had changed, bearing unfamiliar logos and designs. People passed by us, dressed in styles that were a decade too advanced. Our clothes, covered in dust and ancient grime, made us stand out like sore thumbs. "Dylan," Sarah began, her voice shaking. I think we've overshot our time." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked around, panic rising within me. Had we made a mistake? Were we in the wrong time? Did we alter history somehow? A newspaper vending machine nearby caught my eye. I rushed over and picked up a copy. The date on it confirmed our worst fears. We were 10 years into our future. A chill ran down my spine as I processed our new reality. We were strangers in a time we didn't belong, lost in the annals of history. But it was the thought of what we left behind, of our untouched past, that truly terrified me. What happened to our old lives, to our families, our friends? The faces of our loved ones flashed in my mind, filling me with a deep sense of loss and dread. Were they looking for us? Did they think we disappeared, or worse, died? As we navigated our way through the city, I saw our reflection in a shop window. We looked older, wearier. Our adventure had taken its toll on us. Sarah's hair was streaked with gray, and lines etched their way onto my face. The haunted looks in our eyes were a stark contrast to the life-filled city around us. We found our way to a library, looking for any information about our disappearance. As I typed our names into the search bar, my heart pounded in my chest. The results were terrifying. Dylan and Sarah Jennings, the infamous time traveler couple, read the first headline. There were articles, interviews with our families, conspiracy theories about our disappearance, even books written about us. As I scrolled through the material, a cold realization washed over me. We had become legends in our absence, a modern mystery that left our mark on the world in the worst possible way. Our return journey had turned into a nightmare. We were lost, stuck in a time not ours, haunted by the past we left behind and the uncertainty of the future. I could feel Sarah's hand tighten around mine, her fear mirroring my own. Had we done more harm than good with our time travel? Was there a way to fix this? Or were we doomed to live in this alien future, forever haunted by our past? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city, we found ourselves standing in front of our old home. But it was different, aged and weathered, with an unfamiliar family living inside. Sarah, I began, but words failed me. The sight of our home, of our past life, filled me with an overwhelming sorrow. She squeezed my hand. "It's okay, Dylan. We'll figure this out." Her words rang hollow in the growing darkness. We had faced the trials of the Pharaohs, overcome the terrors of the past, only to be confronted with a future we didn't recognize. Our own personal horror story was far from over, the echoes of our past constantly reminding us of our folly. And so, we walked away from our old home, our old life, into an uncertain future. Our journey had become a haunting reality, a chilling testament to our reckless curiosity. But one thing was certain, we had to fix this. We had to correct our timeline. But as the city lights began to twinkle in the growing darkness, reflecting in Sarah's worried eyes, I knew our terrifying adventure was far from over. The echoes of the past were still haunting us, and our fight against time had just begun. We retreated into the bowels of the city, far from the glaring lights and alien architecture of the future we had inadvertently landed in. The gloomy backstreets became our shelter, a place to hide and gather our thoughts. In the heart of the urban jungle, we found an old, rundown hotel. Its weary, faded walls bore the scars of time, just as we did. It was a relic of a forgotten era, a strange comfort in a future that felt like a nightmare. The man at the desk didn't ask any questions, probably used to drifters and wayfarers. We rented a room for a week, using the antiquated coins we had collected during our adventure. It was strange, paying with currency that hadn't seen light in thousands of years. Our room was a reflection of our state, grim, worn out, holding on to vestiges of a forgotten past. As we settled in, the weight of our journey finally hit us. The room, though small and dated, felt like a sanctuary from the strange world outside. Sarah found a small TV in the corner. Flicking it on, we were assaulted by images of a world we barely recognized. Holographic technology, advancements in AI, space travel, it was overwhelming. Every news story, every commercial was a grim reminder of the time we lost. 10 years is a long time in the modern world. Our journey through the past had sent us spiraling into a future we didn't understand. A world that moved on without us. That night, sleep was a distant memory. As Sarah drifted into an uneasy sleep, I found myself staring out of the window, the city's neon glow casting long, eerie shadows in our room. I felt a cold fear creeping up my spine, a sense of helplessness wrapping itself around my heart. Could we really change our timeline? Could we return to our rightful place in time? Or were we doomed to live in the shadow of our past? I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, the room was dark, lit only by the city's ghostly glow. But something had changed. A deep, resounding hum filled the room, a chillingly familiar sound that sent ice-cold shivers down my spine. I turned to find the room bathed in a ghastly blue glow, the source of which was the scroll of the Pharaohs lying innocuously on our worn-out table. The once dormant scroll was now alive, its glyphs and diagrams glowing with an eerie light. I reached out to touch it, but the moment my fingers grazed the scroll, a sharp, searing pain shot through my hand. I recoiled, a scream caught in my throat. My hand was etched with a glowing symbol, the Eye of Ra. My mind raced as I looked at the symbol, remembering the warning of the Pharaohs. Do not let history repeat itself. Had we triggered something by using the scroll in our timeline? Were we responsible for this strange future? The cold realization sent a wave of terror coursing through me. What if our actions had consequences we hadn't foreseen? Suddenly, a chill ran down my spine. The room's temperature dropped drastically, the air filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the low hum of the scroll. My heart pounded in my chest as a sinister feeling of dread washed over me. I could feel something, a presence, a darkness looming over us. It was as if the Pharaoh's curse had followed us into the future, a specter of our past coming to haunt us. I was terrified, but I knew one thing. We had to fix this, no matter the cost. The echoes of the past were haunting us, and only we could silence them. The trials of the Pharaohs were not over. We had brought the past into the future, and now we had to face the consequences. And as the darkness of the room seemed to close in on us, a terrifying new chapter of our journey began. The haunting hum of the ancient scroll filled our dingy room, casting a spectral blue glow on the peeling wallpaper. I sat in silence, my mind whirring with thoughts, questions, fears. Each glowing symbol on the scroll seemed to dance with an otherworldly energy, each line a terrifying testament to our grave mistake. The eerie Eye of Ra etched into my palm glowed brighter by the minute, a burning beacon of our damning folly. It was as if the gods themselves were bearing witness to our actions, to our audacious attempt to manipulate time. With each passing second, the room grew colder, the air heavier. The oppressive atmosphere felt like a predator closing in on its prey, waiting to strike at the perfect moment. Suddenly, the hum of the scroll amplified, resonating through the room like a warning siren. The eye on my hand seared with pain, each throb echoing in the pit of my stomach. Then, with a blinding flash, a form started taking shape in the center of the room. A silhouette, swirling and undulating with spectral energy. I froze, my blood running cold as the figure solidified, manifesting into a spectral entity. Before us stood a spectral pharaoh, wrapped in ethereal robes of shifting energy, his face obscured by a ghostly headdress. His presence filled the room, an oppressive force that radiated ancient power. It was like being in the presence of a god, an angry god. "Dylan and Sarah Jennings, you have transgressed the laws of time," the pharaoh's voice boomed, echoing in the small room. Our hearts pounded in our chests. The reality of our situation was sinking in. We were face to face with the wrath of the Pharaohs, paying the price for our reckless adventure. We didn't mean any harm," Sarah stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your intentions matter not. You have upset the balance of time, and for that you must pay," the Pharaoh declared, his voice resonating with an ancient, ominous energy. As he spoke, a chilling wind swept through the room, sending a shiver down my spine. The Eye of Ra on my palm burned brighter, the intense pain radiating up my arm. But amidst the terror, a spark of resolve ignited in my heart. We had started this nightmare, and it was up to us to end it. I squeezed Sarah's hand, drawing strength from her presence. "We understand our mistake," I started, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "We are ready to fix this." The spectral pharaoh regarded us for a moment, his ghostly features inscrutable. "Very well," he finally said. "But remember, the path to redemption is paved with trials and tribulations." With that, he vanished. leaving behind a chilling silence. The scroll, once humming with energy, now lay inert on the table, the symbols no longer glowing. The ghostly encounter left us shaken, our resolve tested, but it had also ignited a sense of purpose within us. We were not just stranded tourists anymore. We were the architects of our own horror story, caught in a twisted game of time and fate. As the first rays of dawn seeped into our room, we prepared to face our new reality. We had a mission, a daunting task ahead of us: to rectify our timeline, to face the wrath of the gods, to carve our way back to our rightful place in time. I looked at Sarah, her face pale but determined in the morning light. I knew then, no matter the horror, no matter the trials, we would face them together. For it was our love that had started this journey, and it would be our love that would see us through. As the echoes of the Pharaoh's words hung heavy in the air, we stepped out into the alien city, ready to face the terrors of time itself. Little did we know, the true horror was just beginning. For as the old saying goes, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We had learned our lesson the hard way, and now it was time to face the consequences. Our haunting adventure was far from over, and the shadow of the past was ever looming. The trials of time awaited us, a chilling testament to the echoing horror of eternity. Our story reaches its chilling end, but the fear doesn't stop here. Don't forget to subscribe to Spooky Nightmares for more bone-chilling tales. Stay tuned, and until next time, sleep with one eye open.